First of all, I'd like to give you all a warm welcome and thanks very much that so many of you are participating in this Q&A call on midterm planning, the program review and the rapid assessments of programs. Yeah, we have Katrin Rai in the call with us as well, our interim IDR. We have a number of regional colleagues, Maria Dancheva, Doris Brunner, Maya, Sabina, Victoria. We also have some international office colleagues who are joining us today. Felicitas Plötz, who's the program review advisor in the international office, as well as Fiona Clark, who is also very heavily involved in the rapid assessment of programs process and was actually a key person in developing the tool. So I'm very happy to have these two international office colleagues with me here today as well. Later on, after a presentation from mine and Katrin's side, you'll have the chance to ask questions on the process in general. The key objective of this call today is basically to bring you all on board. I see that there are a number of you who will be required to do the rapid assessments of programs present, but also some member associations that aren't required to do the rapid assessment of programs. So welcome to both of you. I hope this session will be informative. It's the second call that we're doing for national directors. So Katrin and I already did one before Christmas, and this is basically the second one that we're offering to kick off the process. All right, I'm sharing my desktop. I hope that you can all see it. In case you don't, please just unmute your microphone and give me a shout. Right, so before we start with the agenda, I'd like to give the opportunity to Katrin just to say some welcoming words to you all as well. Katrin, please.
Thank you, Rosie. And morning, good afternoon, whatever is the time where you are positioned now. I'm very happy also to see that so many of you have joined the call today. Rapid assessment and program review definitely is the overarching topic for the Global Federation for the first half of this year. We are on this together. We learn by doing it because it is a new process, a new method used. It's a new approach which follows our new strategy. First of all, I would like to say I have a lot of confidence that we all do it very well, but secondly, I also would kindly ask you for patience as we go along doing that together. And what then and how then Rosie will continue when telling us. Thank you, Rosie.
Sure, thanks, Katrin. All right, so the overview of today's call, I'd like to brief you first of all on midterm planning and program review, objectives and link to strategy 2030. This section will be presented by Katrin. Then we'll go into the scope, objectives and benefits of the program review, and then talk more about the rapid assessments of programs methodology as one element of the program review. Thereafter, talk a little bit about roles and responsibilities, also in your member association and key timelines that we have, and then also some key to-dos that are coming up in order to kickstart the process in our region. So with this, I'd like to hand over to Katrin.
Thank you. Yes, we briefly look into then the more broad framework of the midterm planning and program review. What are the objectives of that, and how does it link to the strategy 2030? Next slide, Rosie, please. So we were all together in June in Innsbruck. We have a new strategy 2030, which gives us a direction, a very bold, ambitious one, but also very much necessary one in the world. And it is very clear that in this light, we also need to review of our programs, and we need to review our strategies. For our region, where all member associations actually have a strategy, the Sustainable Path strategy or long-term strategy, and really we stand out in the Global Federation as such, and compliments to all of you who have contributed to bringing us at this level. It really means reframing of what already exists there, putting it into the framework of this global strategy now. However, what the Global Federation needs, and what we also need to do from our side, is to really take stock of the programs. And this is this rapid assessment and program review. We need to have a global picture of what are we doing. Is it relevant? Does it address our target group? Is it sustainable over a long period of time? So as such, this is the biggest global exercise. It is much bigger than Sustainable Path Initiative when this was started in 2012. This stock taking then will allow all of you to put your strategies into a strategic frame towards 2020. So we right now speak of the closer horizon of 2020, and then to frame them as well, connected to your plans, linked to local plans, and also what resources are needed. We have to look at that at the NA level first, and then also on global level. And it's also clear then that this needs to be in such a format that we can take a consolidation on the global level. So this will come with this process as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so what does change in 17 different from the planning? As we know, we are really very skilled already and well experienced in the planning on federation side and also from the national side. What needs to be prepared now by middle of May is what is called a midterm frame. So this is the outlook until 2020. What do you plan to do? How much resources are needed for that? Different types of resources, and how much of the funds you can raise locally, how much do you still need internationally. It is based on your strategy. It is a forecast of your existing programs, and of course then what does this then mean for the program review, and how do you link this with the strategy 2030? What is your contribution to the global targets we have set ourselves together? What this also helps you to do is, because again, our region really, we have quite well developed strategies. We have lots of data. We are collecting KPIs. We are on very high level in this way. What it helps you to do is to keep your forecast for the midterm frame until 2020 on the strategic level. This is very important. And based on the pilot which was done in Bosnia, the colleagues now can also confirm that this really helps. Not to go into too much details, to really be able to have this midterm perspective in mind when taking decisions. And as I also mentioned, then it's also the financial resource planning, at first on national level, and then of course it will be aggregated to the global level. Next slide, please. So, and what are then the steps to be followed now in order to come to this midterm frame, the global outlook until 2020? First of all, preparation phase, and this is where we are right now. You are informed about the process of the documents, what we need to use. Then there will be a facilitated training next week, and orientation in Innsbruck. There will be 10 people from EUCB trained for that. If you remember, we had the planning workshop facilitators before. Some of these people are retrained, and new people will be trained so that they can support the process ahead. The regional offices provide orientation So this is also part of what we are doing right now with you, but and our people are also trained then to guide you through the process as necessary. And rapid assessments of programs also need to take place during these 2 months now. This is followed then by the planning workshops, midterm planning workshops. I will not go into the detail of the planning methodology as such, but what I would like to stress is that the main difference from the planning methodology and the planning cycles which we had before was that the on high-level planning, when you look at the previous year actuals and you actually revise and revise your strategy, you revise your longer-term plans and think of how you can proceed, is now done in the first half of year instead of we always did it in September, October, November, if you remember, which makes a lot of sense. I fully support that. So this is what comes into these midterm planning workshops with the rapid assessment results. And what you would then actually do, and especially the ones who have valid strategies, sustainable paths already, and everybody needs to put your plans and strategies into this new framework. So it's a new set of targets, of course, which we have now with our new strategy. So your plans fall into this. So this is what will happen in these midterm planning workshops. Important to stress is that the ones who have good strategies in place, of course, you would have a look anyway. You always do that. You look at the previous year, what did we achieve, how did we change it. You do not need to go through all of it. So it's a decision together with the CVI rep for each national director. To which steps do you need to go in your national association? We do it common sense, practical approach, which makes most sense, but the outcome should be for everybody, so that you have your plans of your association in the formats which are now introduced, so that it's possible to globally consolidate. And then based on these plans, which come from the member associations, there needs to be a consolidation on the global level. And also, by the way, GSC is planning and PSAs are also doing the same. And this global plan must come together by June. And there will be a big meeting beginning of July, where then all the stakeholders in the Federation can see, okay, where do we stand? So what do we plan to achieve until 2020? What is necessary for that? What we have available, and how can we make this possible, and agree on that as well. And again, important to stress is that this now, when we achieve that, when we come to this point, should give all of you, all of us, also the potential income frame, more than just for 1 year. That's the whole point of the midterm frame as well, that all parties commit to a longer frame. A big meeting means that this should bring together the member associations of the Federation and the GSC. The content is being developed now. Exactly who and what the content, I don't exactly know, but tentative is first week of July that there will be a global meeting concerning also the national directors. I answered just the question of Andrei, which was popping up. Yes, next slide, please.
Okay, thanks very much, Katrin. I'll continue then to provide you an overview of the scope, objectives and benefits. First of all, terminology-wise, on Federation level, program review actually includes a number of different elements. One of these elements is basically health and education assessments, which are going on in other regions. In UCB, we already had the kindergarten and school alignment process, so we are exempted from this. Then a second element of which is included under the term program review would be the rapid assessments of programs, which is a prescribed methodology that a number of member associations across the Federation will be going through now in the first half of the year, and which I'll talk about more later. What's also included in this term is the re-innovation process. that's going on in a number of locations. And basically the outcome of the rapid assessments of programs may also then be a number of re-innovation processes in some locations. And then finally, what's also expected under the program review is that PSAs will also do a review of their programs. The timeline for this is still to be defined. So basically in our region, the key processes under the program review term are then re-innovation and the rapid assessments of programs. So what are the general objectives? The program review is really a chance, as Katrin already mentioned, to take stock and to look at our programs critically and strategically in light of the new strategy that we adopted in June. And it's also a chance to reflect on the relevance, impact, quality and efficiency of our programs. So a key objectives in this sense would be that all programs increase their impact and local financial sustainability in line with the new strategy, and also that proactive program change is aligned within MA midterm planning and embraces key guiding international frameworks that we have, which are mentioned here. So as we all know, the UN guidelines for alternative care and new guidelines on the reintegration of children living in alternative care. These are just two of key guiding documents for our work. Then what's also important is that this exercise will be the first step towards results-based management, which we're slowly implementing or starting to implement in our organization. Basically, we'll be able to collect a baseline across the whole federation through the program review, and this baseline will then flow into longer planning cycles, which we're introducing now with the midterm planning process. And another key objective of the program review would be that the aim is that there's improved decision making and collaboration between the three key stakeholders that we have in the federation, so member associations, PSAs and GSC, regarding program changes. So really these three key stakeholders should be involved in the process from the beginning, and which will also give then stronger leverage towards the recommendations that will come out of the rapid assessment of programs. And what are the benefits? One of the key benefits that we would see is that this is really a self-evaluation exercise, which in any case member associations, and I know you all do on a regular basis. It's a chance to critically self-reflect on all program units, as I already mentioned, in light of our new strategy. And also this will provide input to any strategy updates that you need to do, and also input to the midterm frame, as Katrin mentioned, that you will be developing then during the workshop. And also what we saw in the pilot rapid assessment that we did in Bosnia at the beginning of November is that it's very positive that very high level crisp recommendations come out, which are very useful for communication to management and different stakeholders. This slide I'd like to hand over to Katrin to briefly explain also that the program review enables us to invest in strategic program changes.
The whole point of reviewing the programs, of course, is to secure the relevance and quality and sustainability, and to secure that we do only what is meaningful, and then free resources to invest into more meaningful work. So for that, it is also very clear that investments will be needed. For these investments, of course, resources should be freed. There is a very strong commitment from the PSAs, all parties in the federation, that funds will be made available for strategic investments then into the program change which is necessary in the countries. However, I have to very openly also share with you that I can see that there is a very critical time conflict in this. You know that well. You have planned your programs, you have been developing your programs, you have changed your programs. Whatever change you plan, in order to have the effect of this change, it takes time. So I very clearly can foresee myself that before we can free up the resources, there can be coming up needs. However, once again, there is a commitment to invest resources. One more thing to mention here, just to give you a broad context, as a rapid assessment of programs, all the exercise we are doing now, the need here to reshuffle funds very clearly sets limits to us to be very realistic until 2020. And on global level, we really see that we cannot really grow to start towards our set targets in 2030. It is really now the stock taking, reallocation of our activities of resources to make us able to grow then after 2020. But resources will be available. If this really meets your exact moment in time when you need it, I do not have, I cannot really say that now. However, also this time conflict is of course known, and we try to address it as best possible globally. Thank you.
Thanks, Katrin. All right, moving on to the rapid assessments of programs as one component of the program review. What's key in the rapid assessments of programs is the first word, rapid. So basically we have a very tight timeline to carry out the rapid assessments of programs, or the RAPS, as is the common abbreviation that's used. So what's important is that you as a member association aren't expected to do a very in-depth assessment, because the time is just too short. So the idea is that you follow the online tool provided and really make the most of the process as time allowed, but really not to go into in-depth assessments, because the recommendations that come out of these RAPs will also enable you to plan for more detailed assessments later on, and this you can put as an action in your midterm frames. So who is actually doing the rapid assessments of programs in UCB? Here you have a list of 16 countries. These countries, those that are required to do the rapid assessments of programs, or also we have some countries that chose to do it on their own accord, and across federation level there's actually a total of 86 member associations that are doing it. Exempted from doing the rapid assessments of programs and following the methodology are basically sustainable path countries that are on track with their agreements. The key areas that are being assessed in the RAPs are basically relevance for the target group. So the key question that we should be asking ourselves is, are we reaching the right beneficiaries through our programs? The second area is impact and quality. So are we doing our best to maximize impact for our beneficiaries? And the third area is resource efficiency. Are we using funds in a responsible and efficient way? In the methodology, different information sources are used. So on the one hand, we have quantitative data that's been aggregated from central systems in the tool. So the data has already been pre-filled by the international office, and it would be up to your member association now to check whether the data is correct that's been entered, or otherwise you have the chance to comment in the tool. Then the second information source that's being used would be a catalogue of qualitative questions on the three areas, so on relevance, impact and quality, and resource efficiency, that you and your member association can then have a dialogue, an internal dialogue on. And then, of course, it's also crucial to consider any previous evaluations or audit reports or national assessments that you've done, which should all flow into the results. And basically, based on these information sources, you will come up with a set of recommendations per program unit, and the RAP dialogue, which will take place, will basically, on the one hand, take place on this virtual platform, and I'll show you briefly the tool that we'll be using later on, and then also there'll be a dialogue that takes place face-to-face at the midterm planning workshop. So there'll be a 1 to 2 day RAP workshop within this midterm planning workshop where you'll be able to have a dialogue between IOR, MA and PSA on the recommendations and come to an agreement on them. The ratings of the RAP criteria are the basis for the recommendations for the program unit. So these recommendations that I just mentioned that will be coming from the different information sources. So basically the ratings are done of the indicators, so of the quantitative data is done based on cluster averages, and the tool that we have explains more in detail how this was calculated. And then also in the dialogue sheet, each member association will be asked to give its own rating on how it is doing in the 3 areas, and the different stakeholders, so IORs and PSAs, will also give their own rating. So the idea is that through this tri-party rating system, bias will be minimized, and then basically agreement should be met during the workshop. There are 4 types of recommendation which should be coming out of the RAPS. The first one would be whether the program unit is a promising practice. So this would mean that there's no significant change, and the promising practice should be collected and then shared with other member associations across the federation. A second type of recommendation would be no significant change, so the program unit will more or less continue under the current scope of services. However, there might be minor changes in beneficiaries, services or staff. A third category of recommendation would be significant change, so that the program unit could be modified, re-innovated, there's a change in the service or the activities in the target group, the type of intervention, location or partnership. And finally, a fourth category of recommendation could be end of SOS involvement, so that the operation and ownership of a program unit or respective properties could be handed over, or the unit could be closed. And as we already mentioned, the recommendations are the basis for the NA midterm frames. But of course, it's very important to mention that what comes out of the RAPS are pure recommendations, so no decisions should be taken at this point. So in any cases where a significant change or an end of involvement is proposed, this should be assessed in more detail later, so this should then be an action in your plan. So these are the key steps in the rapid assessments of programs process. We have 6 steps, as you can see on this slide. I'll just walk you through briefly the different steps and give you some information on what these include. So right now we're in the first phase, so we're preparing the review. You've all received the toolkit, you've all received the links to the new platform, and now it would basically be the time to start to familiarize yourself with the system, to check the data in the sheets, and as we are right now in the process of getting everyone on board. So to organize these webinars, your member support advisors will also be in contact with you to kick off the process in your member association. So we're just now in the phase of preparing everything. Then the second phase would be the phase of conducting the review, so actually to engage in the system, to fill in any comments that you have in the data sheets, and to have a dialogue on the qualitative questions in your member associations. How you organize this dialogue is completely up to you. So you can do this within your national management team. You can also do it in different locations. But it would be important that key functional responsibles and experts that you have in your MA provide input. The third phase would then be the virtual review dialogue. So there's a sheet in the Excel template where you can insert the recommendations that you would propose for your member association, and then basically during this phase the IORs and PSAs will also provide input into the sheet. And then in the fourth phase, you will have the chance to update or make any updates in your strategies that you think would be necessary in order to inform your midterm plan. And also, in case you wish to do any more in-depth assessments prior to the midterm planning workshops, you're free to do so in this phase. And then basically the fifth phase would be the actual workshops that will be taking place. So as I already mentioned, it will be a midterm planning workshop with a RAP workshop included. So this is especially relevant for the member associations that will be carrying out the RAPs. And then as a final step, it would be the signing of the midterm plan agreement. And then this big meeting that Katrin mentioned before, where all stakeholders will come together. So what does this mean in terms of timelines? The RAP timeline, as you can see here in this process overview, is very tight. So we don't have a lot of time to go in depth into the process. So as I mentioned, it's very rapid. So this first word of rapid assessments of programs is really the essential one. So in January and until mid-February, more or less, the virtual dialogues should be taking place. And workshops should be prepared. Of course, if your workshop is at a later stage and your CVI reps have already contacted you about the dates of the workshops, some have been set, others are still open, this timeline is a little bit more flexible. However, we would really encourage you to try and get the RAPs and the templates filled in by mid-February, so the PSAs and the IOR stakeholders have enough time to also engage in the system and to react to what the member associations have inserted, because across the federation there are really a huge number of member associations that are doing the process, so it would be important to get it done from your side as soon as you can. Then basically from mid-February to the MA workshops, as I already mentioned, the IORs and also the PSAs will be also engaging in the system. There'll be a small regional task force supporting each RAP in each member association, composed of the CVI rep, the MSA who's coordinating it for each member association. Then a program and a finance and an HR person will all be supporting the process and also form together an IOR view per MA. And also the IORs in this time will check the templates and engage in this third phase, the virtual dialogue phase. And then basically in March, and I know some of your workshops are already taking place in March, so it's the deadline is really tight, but you would have the chance to update your strategies or also engage in any in-depth assessments that you have. And then basically from March to mid-May, the workshops should be taking place. And the IOR will be involved in the sense of facilitating the workshops and, yes, also participating. And then, as already mentioned, in July, actually, we have the Come Together meeting, so in the first days of July. And in the second half of the year, annual planning for 2018 will commence as it does every year. Now I just briefly like to show you the workspace, so the online space that we'll be working on. So this is a workspace specifically for EUCB that we have here, and this is the landing page. What's important here is basically the documents folder on the left-hand side here that I'm highlighting with a cursor. I'll just click on that and then show you. So you have one folder per your MA. And in this folder, there's one data sheet, which is basically the first step and the tool that you'll be working in during the whole process. Then you also have a folder for additional preparatory documents that you might want to upload for pre-reading for the different stakeholders if you think it's necessary. And then this is a folder that's still empty where the RAP workshop results will be uploaded after the workshop. Another key folder, which is important, would be the RAP information package folder. So in here you have the presentation that we did with you in December and today, a letter that was sent to you from the International Director Region and also from the management team. Then there's already a pre-filled datasheet example. which you could click through and see how ideally the template would be filled. Then there's also a sheet on program review, what is next, a general international presentation that was sent out to all member associations introducing the RAP and providing an outlook on federation planning, and then there's also a how-to guide. And actually this presentation is very much mirrors the content of the how-to guide, so I would definitely recommend to you to read it. Then there's also another important folder, which would be the reference documents. This is one Word document where you basically have external guiding documents and internal guiding documents. The internal guiding documents also include a link to position papers that have been developed very recently by the International Office on different strategic initiatives in our new strategy. Now I'd like to show you briefly the data sheet. If we click on this, then the data sheet will open, and as you can see, it's one sheet per member association, which basically includes all the different steps that you're required to do. So the first sheet of this Excel sheet is basically the introductory one, and here you will see that you'll see the purpose of each of the different worksheets. So the worksheets, the different tabs are here at the bottom, and then also instructions and instructions for what you have to fill in each sheet. The instructions are also on every individual sheet, but here you can really get an overview of the different sheets. And then basically the second one would be data sources which have been used. Sorry, the system is quite slow in loading. I think I will reopen it. Yeah, so we have the second sheet here on which summarizes the data sources. It describes where they're coming from, the indicator name, the source, a description, the calculation method, the reason for including it in the assessment, and how the benchmark rating has been aggregated. So there's indicators on national association level, and there's indicators on program level. So this is the list of indicators. And then this sheet on NA data would basically, this is already now the pre-filled indicators. There's only one indicator in line 11 that your member association is required to fill in, would be this one. And then also at the bottom of the page, you have the chance to already insert any existing agreements that you have. So if, for example, there's a re-innovation process that's already going on, you would insert it here, and this particular program unit would then not be included in the RAP. Then there's another sheet on health and education assessments, but as already mentioned, this isn't so relevant for your member association. And then we have the next sheet, which would be now the data on program level, so the indicators on program level, which have been pre-filled. So there's three sections. One is for relevance, one is for impact and quality, and one is for resource efficiency and capacity. As you can see, there's not too many indicators, so in the relevance section there's 3, in impact and quality 2, and in resource efficiency we have 3. And so per program unit, where data is available, it's been pre-filled. So in this section here, brief comments on actual data or corrections, you can make a comment. So let's say, for example, that the indicator on percentage of children in alternative care with at least one living biological parent isn't so relevant for your member association because all children are referred by the state. Then you would comment this in the box here. Then the next sheet is a sheet on the qualitative questions, so the catalogue of qualitative questions, again in the 3 sections. So here you have some mandatory questions and some questions Yeah, which are not mandatory, and in the next sheet then would be the place where you can fill it in. So here in the column NA response, you can add any notes that you have on the different questions, and the IOR and the PSA will also include their responses here. And then the dialogue sheet, so this sheet would also be have to be filled in by mid-February if possible. So here you would then basically give a summary per program unit of the overall rating you would give yourself, and then also include the rationale. And the GSC and PSAs will also have a chance to then give their rating and a rationale as well. And the final sheet is the tracking sheet. So this is basically where we fill in the agreed recommendations after the workshop. So you don't have to worry about this sheet at the moment. So returning to the presentation. These will be the pool of facilitators that will be guiding you through the workshops. So right now, as soon as we have all the dates set, then we'll be deciding which facilitator will facilitate which workshop. Moving on to rapid assessments of programs, roles and responsibilities. So this is basically just a summary of what we have in the how-to guide. So overall, the national director is accountable to deliver quality results. The NMT provides content input from each function. And then we also have a national champion or a national focal person, which most of you have already defined, who are also in this call. So their role would be to consolidate the content input from each function, and in order to form this joint view for each MA. And then of course the CVI rep is accountable to deliver quality results, and that the process works well overall, and the MSAs are coordinating the process and will be your first touch point. And finally, program review and strategy implementation manager in the IOR, Elizabeth Mandel, and I are working jointly on this, so we'll be coordinating the process on regional level, provide any content input or content explanation that you would need, and we'll be the counterpart for the member support advisors. Finally, to-dos for the rapid assessment of programs. As most of you have done already, it would be important to nominate a national champion, and also to set a workshop date if you haven't done so already. Then the next step would be to start to familiarize yourself with the platform, check the location data sheets, ask any questions that you may still have. This is the call. The next one is the call that's taking place right now, and then basically until mid-February we would ask you to check the data sheets, add any corrections, discuss the qualitative questions, and fill in the dialogue template. And then there's also the option to have a virtual dialogue call with IORs and PSAs before, if you have a big member association, or if you have a couple of issues that you'd like to resolve before the workshop. And then also a key task for you as member associations will be to make logistical arrangements for the workshop. So now I'd like to hand over to you guys if you have any questions on the process already. We have around 15 minutes left for any questions that you have, so feel free to ask. You can just unmute yourselves, or you can also type in the chat box if you want.
Rosie, may I start?
Of course.
Ekaterina Grishnov from Russia. My first question is very technical. I tried to download the table to translate it, because many of my colleagues, especially from locations, do not speak English, and I failed to do that. Maybe I didn't do some necessary steps, but it seems like it is not allowed to download the table. Will it be open for downloading soon, or maybe there are some
So in terms,
some recommendations how to do that?
Do you mean the data sheet?
Yes, right.
Yeah. Okay. Usually, if you would open it and then save a local copy, I'll just see. I'm just
It
opening
doesn't
it
work. I
now.
tried.
Okay. Well, I'll contact you after the call and see if there's perhaps any user access rights that you don't have yet, which I can give
Okay.
you immediately. And yeah, if not, then I'll send you a copy, no problem. But it should be possible for you to be able to download. So basically, under File, you should have the option to save as, but if you don't have the user rights yet, I'll give them to you. But yeah, I'll write to you after the call to resolve this.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
And may I ask the second question, which is really important? For me, there are a lot of missing data. Like, for example, on sheet programs data, no data is available for our CVs on percentage of children in alternative care and so on. So should we fill in the data exactly in this column, or should we make brief comments in the next column?
As I understand it, you would fill it in directly in the column. However, I'll just reconfirm that with Felicitas and Fiona, if possible.
Yes. Hi, Felicitas is speaking.
Hello, thank you.
Normally, if it states no data, then you can just insert the correct figure in blue color, please. And if necessary, you can still include a comment. There's always on the right-hand side a column for columns. So just include the figure, please, directly. And one more comment from my side to your first question. There's just one thing. Yes, you can download it and save a local copy. The most important thing for all of us is that then on the workspace, we all stakeholders just work on one version, so that we don't save a second version of the datasheet on the workspace, because then, for example, IOR people or PSA people don't know which is the correct version, and we could get into troubles with working on different versions. And also for the global tracking, it is all linked with formulas, so please only work on
I
one
understand.
version.
That's why we need this option of downloading, because it's not possible for one person to download, to bring all the data for 6 locations and God knows how many number of program units. That's why we have to combine it all and then put the final data into the table in the intranet.
Perfect,
But
great.
it would be very important for us to have this option of downloading something we can work on locally.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great. So ideally, it would be then that the national champion or the national focal person is then the one that's making sure that there's just this one data sheet per member association uploaded in the system. So I hope that also answers your question, Gulnoza.
Hi, can I ask a question, Juliana?
Yes, please.
Okay, I would like to ask more about the process of signing contracts. And do you know more about how this process is planned? When this will happen? Would it happen before the budgeting process for 2018? And what this contract actually will be consist of? Will be, beyond financial commitment, and if there will be some kind of financial commitment from PSA in this contract, and is there going to be any other, let's say, important views in this contract that we will have to commit to?
From what I know, it would be the midterm frame that basically all stakeholders would sign off. With regards to any financial commitments, Katrin, do you know any more information on this at this point? Or any of the IO colleagues?
Hello, Felicitas is speaking. So until now, the thinking or the concept is that the process is that during the NA workshops, recommendations are built, and that we all come out of the workshop with a joint recommendation for each unit, which then needs to be prioritized. And during the global or the Federation Alignment meeting in July, the entire midterm plan where it's integrated will then be finalized between all the 3 different stakeholders.
Okay, I hope that answers your question, Juliana. Does it?
Not really. Okay,
Yeah.
because I wanted to know when this is planned, like July, August, September, and what this contract will actually mean for us.
So it's basically the midterm frame towards 2020. That is the one that's signed off, and that one should be done by the end of May, because then the Global Federation will be consolidating it into the global midterm frame towards 2020. So by the beginning of July, when we have the big stakeholder meeting, it should already be decided. So it will be done in time for the planning in the second half of the year.
Okay, thank you.
So, Tatiana, you have a question regarding the calculation, for example, of growth and number of beneficiaries in FBC in the space of 2014 to 2016 in percentage. How was this calculation done, as the percentage of growth is so huge? Fiona, could you, since you devised the indicators, could you explain a little bit more about the calculation of this one?
This calculation actually comes from program planning and construction, and it's based on growth trends during the last cluster period. So from 2013 until 2016, there were some defined growth trends that should happen depending on what cluster you're in. And basically this analysis was done to see whether countries' beneficiary numbers are changing according to the cluster position they were in. And what the analysis showed was that often the changes were not according to the cluster, and that also led to increased requests for funding, which were unsustainable moving forward. So the growth is purely calculated as a change in beneficiary numbers from 2012 until 2016 as the dates that you've written there. And then this should be reflective of the percent of growth in your situation. I'm not sure specifically why it would be huge, but yes, this would be for FS and FBC in your country.
Tatiana, does that answer your question? Okay, great.
Can I have a question?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, this is Rashad from Azerbaijan. Actually, I do have many questions. Some of them are technical, some of them are content questions, but I think maybe it makes sense to address them in our call with regional director, maybe. But for example, I would like to ask, for example, one question about the how to guide document says, page 16 say that there are 3 pre-selected mandatory questions for all regions. However, Azerbaijan question master shows 8 mandatory questions. So
that must be then a typing mistake, I guess. Felicitas, yeah, you were the one writing the how-to guide. It must just be a glitch, right? In that case.
Yes, well, we have 3 mandatory questions for each region, and then it's up to the region and the NA to select further questions. So in that case, we just need to follow up individually if it's just a typo, or if the CVI rep or someone from the IOR already selected these questions, especially for the country.
Thank you. Maybe we can make it clear with our CVI rep. Okay, thank you.
And Vesna, about your question to whom you can address your content questions related to the datasheet, please address them directly to your member support advisor, and then basically I'll be the one following up with the content questions. All right, we have 3 minutes left on this call. Are there any further questions from your side? And of course, you're always free to write to your member support advisor, and then I'll be quick to follow up with any content questions that you have. And of course, Ekaterina, I'll be in contact with you directly after this call regarding the datasheet download.
Rosie? Hi, it's Berta.
Hi, Berta.
Hi. We filled in the data sheet 2 weeks ago, and a new file was created which said NA data sheet editable. We didn't know how to avoid that, but how do we now delete this empty data sheet that is still there?
Felicitas, would the member association be allowed to delete the empty one? Is that possible?
Sure.
Okay.
The editable one?
If you go to NA Kosovo now, you can see, the one editable has been finalized, but that one is empty. So
basically what you do is you click on the 3 little dots here on the side, and then again on the 3 little dots. Okay. And then there's the option to delete.
Delete, okay.
Yeah, and that's basically all there's to it, yeah.
Can I have one more question?
Yes, of course.
I would like to ask about the planned budget cuts about 15%, because our planning and reviewing and trying to optimize and prioritize the program, it's of course connected also with the available funds. So I would like to know, is it clear about how this distribution of 15% cuts for the next 2 years is planned, meaning each MA will be cut 15% in these 2 years, and is it going to be equally split in these 2 years, or there is a different kind of model? And also it's very important when we will know that, because it's very difficult for us when we have pre-dialogue process, we plan, we agree, and we don't know about any cuts, and then in, I don't know, end of September, we actually know that what we have put in dialogue, we cannot do it. So are we going to know, for example, in this conference in July, more about this, or before that?
I'll pass your question on to Katrin, as she has a higher level of information than I do.
Thank you. And thank you for the question. It is very relevant to everybody. There will be a GSC planning meeting to kick off this rapid assessment and midterm planning process in 2 weeks, in 1.5 weeks actually already. And this will be discussed there. Right now, we know that we have a regional frame, and there will be reallocations possible in the region. This information must come to you much earlier than July, because once you have done your rapid assessments, you have the priorities of which are your very relevant programs. You also must know how to then make your midterm plan about these programs and what are your financial frames for that. So when exactly more information can be available, I don't know yet, but I must be able to tell about it after the meeting, which will take place 1st to 3rd of February in Innsbruck. Did I answer your question?
Yes,
thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we're 1 minute over time, so I'd like to thank all of you for participating in this call. As already mentioned, if you have any questions, please approach your member support advisors. You can also call me directly if you have any burning issues and you can't reach anyone. So I'm at your disposal at all times. And yeah, hope you have a nice rest of the day. Thanks a lot for joining.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank
you. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Rosie. And
Thanks, Katrin.
¿Qué?